a Bible, get it out. We need our Bibles, okay? If you've got a phone with a Bible app, flip it open to John chapter 11, because we're going to be looking at a very famous story today, because I think this is a unique moment in time. And so I thought we'd look at a unique moment in the scriptures. You see, the church around the world and Life Church in Southampton is emerging into a different landscape. You know, over the last few weeks, I've had people say to me, what will church be like when we come back together again? What will be the same? What will be different? And every single church and every single organization is realizing that we're emerging into something different. So we're going to have a look at two cameos this morning, two cameos of life with Jesus, a before and after cameo. And as we look at those, we're going to look at two contrasting moments in the life of a man called Lazarus. You'll know Lazarus, very famous story, one of Jesus' friends, because I believe God wants to use this little story to bring us a little bit of prophetic insight as to what it means to emerge out into a new landscape with Jesus. So two halves to this message, really. Two halves. Firstly, we're going to just simply go through the beginning bit of John 11, exegete that a little bit, see what the scriptures tell us. And then secondly, I want to make a few observations for what I feel like this insight gives us into a post-lockdown church. So get John 11 open with me. Now, the big sweep of the story, you know it well. Lazarus was a friend of Jesus. He got sick. He died. Jesus raised him. Now, you might already be thinking, hang on a minute, the church isn't dead. Why are you comparing it to Lazarus? I'm not saying that the church has been dead over the last 18 months. Far from it. We've been very much alive and well, but we have been entombed to a degree. We've been restricted in what we can do, where we can go, how we can live. All of us have experienced that. And so I kind of want us to acknowledge that there's been a measure of loss. There's been a measure of grief. And just as Jesus called Lazarus and Lazarus walked out of the grave, so I believe that as we walk out into this new landscape, the best is yet to come. Okay? The best is yet to come for each of us. So let's have a look in John 11. Starts off, now a man named Lazarus was sick. His name's important, actually. Names in the Bible are always important. Lazarus, the name, means God has helped. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but over the last year or so, have you known God's help through the trials? We have, haven't we? Put your hand up if you've known God's help. We have, haven't we? You know, this has been an incredible moment for us to lean into God and to appreciate his care for us. So Lazarus means God has helped. Even in sickness, God helped. Even in death, God helped Lazarus. And there have been many of us that have gone through sicknesses. There are many of us that have experienced death close at hand. And this has been a moment when we've known Jesus helping us. He brings peace into the suffering. He brings resurrection to that which is dead. So Lazarus was sick, God helped him. And then we see that he was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. So here you've got Lazarus, you've got Mary, you've got Martha. What you've got here is a little picture of some of Jesus' friends, close friends. Now, Jesus has always been interested in friendship. That's why he wanted to get to know you. He's interested in friendship. He loves friendship. We get a picture here of how Jesus functioned in friendship with both men and women. This is, if you like, a little picture of what Paul taught Timothy about how the church should function, where we treat one another as brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers. Here you've got Jesus honoring and loving Lazarus, a male friend, Mary and Martha, female friends, and loving them as sisters. And so our relationships, it teaches us something about our relationships. These are important relationships. Have a look around you. If you're in your home, have a look around you at home. If you're in the room, have a look around you in here. These are important friendships. Jesus is our friend, but we're also friends with one another. He taught us how to be friends. So Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, all there. And we get a little bit more information about Mary in verse 2, saying that this Mary is the same one who poured perfume on Jesus' feet. We'll come to that in a moment in the second little cameo as we flash forward in a minute. But what they said to Jesus when they got in touch with him. They said this to him in verse 3. Lord, the one you love is sick. So there we get a picture of the type of relationship, the type of friendship that they had. Lord, the one you love. You see, Jesus loved and was loved. That was Jesus' motive for wanting to raise Lazarus from the dead. He didn't do it to show off. He didn't do it to demonstrate his great power. He didn't do it to be impressive. He did it because he loved. Everything that he ever did was out of love and compassion for those that were around him. We must be exactly the same. The one you love is sick. So not only do we see that Jesus loved and was loved, but he also confronted loss. He also dealt with grief. Lazarus was sick, and Jesus was the answer. Wherever you find trial and challenge, wherever you suffer grief and loss, Jesus is always the go-to. He's always the place that we go to in our hour of need. I don't know what your need is, but I do know where the need is satisfied. It's in Jesus. Okay, so whatever your need is this morning, Jesus is the solution. Jesus is always the answer to every question regarding our loss, our disappointment, our frustration, our anger, our sickness, our hurt, our pain. He's always our go-to. He's always the answer. And so we're seeing a picture of Jesus here that is very relatable, very personal. He's there, he's with his friends, he cares about them, and we can sometimes limit it to that and think, okay, we're seeing a picture of Jesus who's very much, yeah, he's our friend, he's our brother, he's he's close to us, he cares about us. But then what I love about this little cameo that we get of this story of Lazarus is that it draws out to the massive cosmic picture of Jesus as well as the friendly, kind of touchable, relatable Jesus. Because in verse 4, he goes on to say, this sickness will not end in death. Now, that's quite a bold proclamation, isn't it? I mean, to be able to say to somebody, you're sick, but you are not going to die. I mean, we can often come face to face with sickness, can't we? But what we can't do then is make that dotted line and say, but you're not going to die. Because we don't know. You and I don't know. We can comfort, we can support, we can encourage, we can help, but we can't say, no, don't worry, you're not going to die. Jesus could. We're getting a pull back here to a much bigger picture of the omniscient Jesus, the Jesus that sees everything, the Jesus that knows everything, the Jesus that is the Alpha and the Omega, the cosmic Jesus. You see, we get this pull. I love this story because we get this pull out and pull back again. But what we do know is that he knows the end from the beginning, and he has a purpose in it all. Even in our suffering, even in our loss, even in our grief, Jesus has a purpose in it all, and it's to display the glory of God. Verse 5, moving on, it says, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So there we see it again. The very heart of God is a love that he has like no other. I mean, Jesus loves like nobody on earth loves. I mean, if you could bottle it, you could sell it, the love of Jesus. I've never experienced anything like the love of Jesus. I'm sure you've never experienced anything better than the love of Jesus. And this is the message that we have to bring to a world that is perishing and suffering, a world that is in grief. There is a love like no other. If there's no other message that you hear today, hear this. Jesus loves you like no other. If you're listening online, Jesus loves you like no other. And if you've never experienced his love, get into it. It's the best thing on planet Earth. Oh, if I could put a price on it, I'd be a multimillionaire. But it's free, obviously. Verse 6, moving on, verse 6. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. What? That's a bit odd, isn't it? Mary and Martha are panicking slightly. Lazarus is really ill. Hang on a minute. We know the go-to place. Jesus is our go-to place. He'll be the one that will sort Lazarus out. He'll be the one that will heal him. Quick, Jesus, can you come down to Bethany? Lazarus is really on his last legs. Yeah, I'll get there in a couple of days. Not even that. He stayed where he was a couple of days and then traveled to Bethany. Was he uncaring? Was he busy? Well, no. But he was outside time. He's the Alpha and the Omega. We get this drawback to the cosmic Jesus again. He knows the end from the beginning. He wasn't in a hurry because he knew what he was able to do. He had such a trust in his relationship with his Father that he knew that a miracle wouldn't be out of the question. But he made them wait. You know, a few weeks ago, my father-in-law fell into his garden pond, quite a big pond, and he's in his 80s, and he was stuck there. He was stuck there for an hour and a half in this cold pond late in the evening. Eventually, Joe's mum wondered, where is he? Went out into the garden, found him there. Had to end up calling an ambulance out. Now, can you imagine if they called the ambulance and the ambulance driver said, yeah, we'll set off in a couple of days. Well, thankfully they didn't. They came, they brought him out of the water, they brought him back to temperature. He's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. But the thing I want you to understand is we can't presume on God's timing. And you and I know that how many times have we gone through this last season and gone, how long is this going to go on for? A route map, measuring our time, looking, okay, on this date we can do that, on that date we can do that. When we get to there, we'll be able to sit with another human. Whoa! You see, we can't presume on God's timing. But what I can tell you is it's better than mine and it's better than yours. So if you're in a moment where you're feeling the frustration of waiting, just turn that back to a moment of trust, can you? If you're in a moment of impatience and frustration, turn it into a moment when you receive again the Holy Spirit and say, Lord, give me the gift of patience. And if you're feeling like God's delayed on you, he hasn't. Okay, he hasn't delayed on you. He knows what he's doing. He's good at this stuff. Okay, so do trust him. Verse 7. Then he said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. Now, the disciples heard this. They'd have remembered what happened in Judea. Back in Judea, they tried to stone Jesus. So he's saying, let's go back to where we were in danger. Let's go back to where we were facing death. Let's go back to suffering. And you can imagine his disciples, well, hang on a minute, Jesus, look. Okay, Lazarus is sick, maybe even dead. Now, if we do the maths and we add a dead Jesus to a dead Lazarus, that is not going to go down well. Please, Jesus, don't go back. But this gives us another glimpse into the heart of Christ. He was the supreme example of suffering. In fact, love for Jesus was demonstrated by service in every aspect of his life. He laid down his life for Lazarus. He laid down his life for you and I. He was willing to serve rather than be served. This is the picture that we get of Jesus. That's why he wasn't afraid of going back, because suffering for him meant love. You know, if you want to love in a Christ-like way, it means saying, I am willing to lay down my life for you. I am willing to serve you even unto death. That's the kind of love that Jesus models for us in this little cameo. That's Jesus-like love. Would you give up everything for those that you love? Everything? Even pay the ultimate price? That's Christ-likeness. And then we get this interesting little bit in verse 9 where Jesus answered, they said, you know, don't go back there, they're going to stone you. And he answers in a slightly cryptic way. He says, are there not 12 hours of daylight? A man who walks by day will not stumble, for he sees the world's light. And it's when he walks at night that he stumbles, for he has no light. And it's an interesting little parable almost. But what he's saying is basically, you've got to get your head into the times. So imagine you lived there in that time, in that place. No electricity, no lights that govern the kind of how long you can stay up for. So when the daylight was up, that was activity time. That was work time. When the sun was up, you could do the stuff. When the sun went down, all of a sudden you're plunged into darkness. You might get the odd oil lamp here and there, you know, an olive oil lamp or something, but you can't work in the same way. And Jesus is basically saying to his disciples, look, I know I'm approaching death, darkness, night. But at the moment, the sun's up. Okay? It's not even dusk yet. I know he's heading to Jerusalem, but it's not even dusk. Because Jesus is saying, look, we still have work to do. There are still miracles to accomplish. I don't mind going back to Judea. I don't mind going back there because there is still stuff for us to accomplish. And one day there will be an end and this thing will be wrapped up. But at the moment it is daylight, so I'm going back and I'm not going to let you guys put me off. He's the light of the world. He brings light into the darkness. Now, one day, this is going to be true for all of us. The dusk will come, the sunset will come, the night will come. And then our daylight will be over, okay? For some of us, we're nearer dusk than we are dawn. For some of us, we're nearer dawn than we are dusk. But our days are numbered. Our days are measured. And what does this mean? It means we've got to squeeze every bit of mission and ministry and love for Jesus out of the years that we have ahead of us that we can do. Why would we want to give our lives to something temporary? Why would we want to give our lives to something less? I want to urge you, give everything that you can in the years that you have ahead of you for him, because the light has not gone out and you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. And then Jesus speaks of Lazarus in verse 11. Our friend Lazarus, he said, has fallen asleep. I'm going to wake him up. Now, there's a really, really important theological point to make here. Jesus uses this word asleep. And this is where I want you to listen very carefully. Those of you at home, just listen for a moment. Especially if you've never personally yourself believed in Jesus. Jesus uses this word sleep, being asleep. This idea of being, i.e. a temporary state, being asleep. But it's only used of those who believe in him. Everybody else, he uses the word dead. Now, I want you to understand that. If you don't yet believe in Jesus, when you die, there will be a moment of separation that becomes a permanent separation from God, from love, from joy. You might think, hang on a minute, that's a bit scary. You're trying to frighten me into believing in Jesus. No, I'm just telling you what Jesus said. I want you to make up your own mind. I really do want you to make up your own mind. But those who die as believers, those who die believing in Jesus, it says that in the blink of an eye, just in a moment, we're going to be more awake and more alive than we can ever really imagine at this moment. Someone put it like this. I've got a quote here. If you're not a Christian, then this life is the best you will ever know. If you are a Christian, then this life is the worst you will ever know. I quite like that. Yeah, that's true. Let's move on to verse 17 very quickly. Verse 17, Jesus then arrives in Bethany. Lazarus has been dead, and he's been in the tomb for 4 days. And what we see is a picture of a wake, if you like. The Jewish friends of Mary and Martha and Lazarus, they come, they gather around, they're bringing support to the family in their moment of crisis, their moment of loss, their moment of grief. They're loving them, they're supporting them, they're praying for them. Do you know, just as an aside, I think this is something that I have been so impressed with Life Church in over this last year or two. The way that when people have been struggling or suffering, that the church has gathered around them and brought light and life and relief. A text here, a message there, an email here, dropping something off on somebody's doorstep, a word of encouragement, a word of comfort, a prayer. Well done, well done. So Martha goes out to meet Jesus. Jesus is coming to bring the solution to the problem. She goes out to him and says, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died. So she goes out there and she feels very, very happy to express her grief to Jesus. Okay? Again, this gives us a bit of a blueprint. It's okay to express your grief to Jesus. Okay? She didn't know what he was going to do next. He did. He can take it on the chin. It's okay. But then do you notice what she does? She turns it around because she then goes on to say to him, but God will give you whatever you ask. So she takes her moment of grief and loss and pain and she turns it around into a moment of faith. She says, yes, I have. If you'd have been here, Jesus, he wouldn't be dead. But, I know God will give you whatever you ask for. Now, like I say, it's okay to express loss, grief, pain, suffering, frustration, all that we've all gone through. But then you've got to grasp that, and you've got to turn it into a moment of faith. And you've got to say, yeah, but I know, Jesus, that you have a plan. But I know that the best is yet to come. But I know that you are still with us. But I know that your mission still continues. But I know that you have things for us to accomplish, the like of which we've not yet seen. You see, we've got to take it and we've got to turn it into a moment of trust and faith rather than a moment of doubt and loss. So that's the first little picture before Lazarus was raised from the dead. I'm going to flick over because that first cameo ends with a glimpse of what's going to happen. Verse 23, very simply, Jesus says, your brother will rise again. And wow, something's going to happen that is so incredible. And true to his word, Jesus goes to the tomb. He tells them to take away the stone. The stench of a 4-day-old dead body starts to waft out of the tomb. And Jesus says, Lazarus, come out. And he does. He's alive. And it's incredible, but it's true. Remember, this is history. This is history, not fantasy. Okay, this isn't Lord of the Rings. Okay, this is history. This man came out of this tomb. And so here's what I wanted to begin to apply a bit of prophetic relevance for us. I'm just going to have a sip of water before I do, if that's all right. You can tell it's been some time since I've been able to preach with any zeal. It's not the same in an empty room, I tell you that now. So let me just read to you, because this is where I want you to start to catch a glimpse of the resurrected post-lockdown life church. Okay? I'm going to just read the first few verses of chapter 12 to start with. So this is John chapter 12. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus arrived at Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Here, a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha served while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. Then Mary took about a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it out on Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. So this is after the whole drama of the resurrection. Jesus has come back to Bethany because they've invited him for a celebration. They've invited him for a party in his honor. The one who raised their brother from the dead, they want to thank him. They want to celebrate it. They want to revel in this new life. And so there they are. And Lazarus is there, cool as a cucumber, chilling out, reclining at the table with his buddy Jesus. And they're there. And the first thing that happens is an incredible act of worship. An incredible. Mary gets this pint of perfume called nard. Now, historians tell us and the scriptures tell us that this is worth about a year's wages. So you equate that to southern England, that's about £30,000 worth of perfume. This is probably the life savings of the family, or, everybody had probably contributed to this. It was like an investment, if you like, a precious thing that the family had. And Mary is sloshing it over Jesus' feet. I mean, it's utterly extravagant, wasteful to some. And some of them were critical of her. But she pours it on Jesus' feet, a total devotion, and Jesus receives it. He doesn't say, no, keep it. You're going to need that. No. He receives this ridiculously over-the-top gesture of devotion. The first thing, Life Church, that we must re-establish in the post-lockdown church is our total devotion in worship. Our total commitment to give everything that we have in honor of the one who gave everything for us. In all its variety. In all its variety. So Jesus glorifying music is one of them, for sure. Absolutely. But it's also our generous and our cheerful giving. It's our enthusiastic mission. It's our love for one another. It's our witness to others. Everything that we do. And we must rid ourselves, friends, of every other agenda. We must rid ourselves of everything that is not worship. We are all about Jesus. What we must not do is make everything that we do highly proficient, but all about us. Here's what we can do. We can go through all of our songs and we can cull all of the ones that are just about us. And we can replace them with all of the songs that are just about him. Yeah? You know the kind of songs I'm thinking about. There are some of them that over the last 10 years or so have begun to creep in. And you'd think that I was the object of worship when you sing this song, because it's all about me. No, we want to sing songs about Jesus. Yeah, we want to worship him. We want to give our lives to him. We must make it all about him. And it's not about singing really at all. It's about the posture of our hearts. It's really about how we angle our attitudes to make sure that everything that we think and say and do brings glory to him. Glory to him. You know, as we come out of lockdown, I want you to stop thinking about how things were before. You know, a friend of mine said recently, coming back to post-lockdown church is a bit like church planting. I want you to think about that for a moment, because we've got 3, soon to be 4 sites in Southampton. So basically what we're doing over the next few months is we are planting 4 churches all at once. That's what's happening. If we make it all about us, it's going to kill us. But if we make it all about him, he's in the midst and he will do it. See, everything that we do must be for him. And that's why we're keeping things really simple here on a Sunday. Because we want it to be about him, not what a great show we can put on. We want Jesus to be honoured amongst us. Do you get my heart in this? We want him to be the one that receives the glory, not somebody to say, oh, well done, you put on a really good meeting. To be honest with you, I don't give a stuff if we put on a good meeting. I'd rather have a rubbish meeting in a bus stop, but Jesus be there. Yeah? Actually, just coming back to that church planting point, in all seriousness, in church planting, things are rough around the edges. It takes all hands on deck. Do you know you are going to be more important, the role that you play in Life Church in the years coming up now, than you've ever been? Because we need you. Genuinely, we need you. And we want you to come to us and say, how can I serve? How can I help? Where can I get stuck in? Where would you like me to play my part? What would you like me to give this towards? Come on, we need you, because we're planting 4 churches all at once. So total worship, offering our bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, is the first of our post-lockdown priorities. Second one is gospel witness. Look at verses 9 and 10. This is at the party, remember? Meanwhile, a large crowd of Jews found out that Jesus was there and came not only because of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he'd raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to kill Lazarus as well. For on account of him, many of the Jews were going over to Jesus and putting their faith in him. You can see what's happened here, can't you? I mean, this has caused a storm amongst the Jewish community. Jesus is now back. Lazarus is raised from the dead. The Jews are thinking, this is a double threat. Not only have we got the one who raised him from the dead, but we've got the proof. And now all these people are hopping over from us to him. Hang on a minute. We've got to stem the tide a little bit. They'd become an object of fascination. I honestly believe that in this new day, the church, you, me, is going to become an unusual fascination, because we're all about Jesus. People have looked everywhere else for peace and satisfaction and joy and whatever else they might think they need, and it's all come to nothing. All of it's come to nothing. And so people everywhere are looking, saying, well, maybe it's that. And if we are faithful with our witness, what they will find out is it is all about Jesus. And that is where real peace and satisfaction comes. That is where real joy comes from. Now I understand why my Christian friends don't buckle when trouble comes, or why when they lost that family member, they didn't just get angry. It's because of Jesus. And people will go, okay, I can see now. I can see. Your story has never been more important than it is now. Your influence in your workplace or your school or your college or your university or in your neighborhood has never been as influential as it is right now. You are an object of curiosity just as Lazarus was. You too have been raised to new life. And others will look at you and go, hang on a minute, I used to believe that, but when I look at that, I think I now believe this. That's the influence that you now have where you are. Gospel witness must be our high priority as we come back to post-lockdown church. Similarly, just as they were opposed, just as Lazarus and Jesus were being hunted down, trying to snuff them out, so we will be opposed. You will be. I promise you, you will be opposed. The opposition will get more real. You will increasingly grate against the culture in which you exist. In some places, you will be an anomaly. And when you say you believe in protecting children in the womb, people will think you're crazy. Even if you're also caring for the mother that found herself unexpectedly pregnant. People will think you're mad. If you have a normal, traditional view on human sexuality, people will say you're bigoted, you're this, you're that. We have to continue to stand out against the culture and be a radical witness for the truth of Jesus Christ in our day. We have to keep living for, speaking for Jesus. We must remain true to him. Our witness must remain consistent. We must not bend with every wind of doctrine. We must not sway with the pervasive culture. We are Jesus people. We speak the love of Jesus, the truth of Jesus. Not judgment, that's for him. We're here to love our neighbors. And your witness has never been more important than it is right now. Thirdly, this group of people had come to see Lazarus basically because he was now alive. I mean, you would do, wouldn't you? I mean, if you heard that, I came round at Chris Kilby's house this afternoon, he's got a guy that was dead yesterday. But he's sitting up having a cup of tea in his garden. He wants to come and ask him some questions about what happened. Yeah, I mean, you'd just go, wouldn't you? And there's this crowd who have come to witness it because it was a miracle. And the third thing I think must be a feature of the post-lockdown church is that we must be leaning into amazing wonders. Okay, this is a verifiable, real miracle. He'd come out with all the trappings of death, the grave clothes, the smell, everything, but now he was reclining at the table with Jesus at a party. Okay, this is a miracle. And the same Jesus that rose Lazarus from the dead still has compassion on the sick, still cares for the poor, and still wants us to be praying for the miraculous intervention of God into their lives. Miracles of provision, miracles of healing. Who knows? Even dead bodies raised. Who knows? Could be a feature of the post-lockdown church. But let's put ourselves and position ourselves into a place of faith. Yeah? Let's not just go for the lowest common denominator. Let's expect God to do even more than we could ask or imagine in this next season. And fourthly, and finally, I believe that there are new works for us to do. We don't hear a lot more about Lazarus after this incident. But what we do know is he'd have had another go at life. He'd have carried on doing life. And we've got loads of things that we're going to be getting on with. So as Si said, gradually we're going to be re-establishing meetings and ministry and mission from all of our current sites. We're going to get back on our feet and be doing it. We're going to be buying and using the new building. 11 Cranberry Terrace, we've called it, up until now, up until this moment, okay? And now we're going to call it the Boathouse. Because do you remember, we're a lifeboat. And a boathouse is where the lifeboat gets equipped. It's where it gets trained. It's where it gets sent from. It's where the crew come, yeah, for training, for rest. A boathouse is a place where we all get equipped to go out and rescue. So we're going to change the name. As soon as we've got the keys, we'll change the name to the Boathouse, okay? And the whole point of that is because we want to keep that emphasis on us being a lifeboat going out on mission together. And we're going to be launching the fourth site from there. as well, which will no longer be called the fourth site. Okay? As of now, it will be called Life Church at the Boathouse, because they're going to be functioning out of that building and reaching the community around there and some of the 60,000 students in the city. Life Church at the Boathouse, launching soon. Get on board. Okay? We're also going to slightly tweak, because of some missional things really, we're going to slightly tweak some of the names of our current sites. We've seen some limitations, not hugely. So Life Church West End, we're just going to add the word at in. So it's Life Church at West End. The purpose being that it's an expression of Life Church, but it's at West End. So it helps us in terms of unity, because we're all Life Church. That expression is at West End. This one will become Life Church at the college. Life Church at the college. Because actually, when we've got the fourth site, this one is no longer central in terms of geography to the city anymore. And also, we don't want people thinking central means necessarily bigger or better. We want to bring an evenness to our site. So this will be Life Church at the college. So you'll know, that's the part that you're part of. That's the bit of Life Church that you are at. Similarly, with West End, will be Life Church at West End. Life Church at the Cedar School for Lord's Hill. We've called it Lord's Hill up until now, but we've realised actually most people either come from Nursling or from Roundhams or from Lord's Hill or from out of town. And one or two people from Lord's Hill made a very good point that actually people, if they're not part of Lord's Hill, they don't think of Lord's Hill as the place where they belong. And so naming it after one geographical area when it actually could reach a whole bigger area. Do you see what I'm saying? It's for a missional reason. So you'll notice the changes coming up in the near future. But for the sake of mission, we're making just a few small adjustments. And we're going to keep growing and developing leaders. You'll see James and Esther Hatcher starting to build a team and lead really effectively over at what was Lord's Hill, which is now Life Church at Cedar School. Okay? They're going to be picking up a key role as elders on the site there, leading the team. I'm really excited about that. Fresh adventures ahead. Expect to see Nathan and Phoebe Guy leading alongside Dave McNee, supporting them in Life Church at the Boathouse as that starts to emerge. You see newer, younger leaders coming through and forging forward so that the mission of God can continue. Our staff team will continue to grow. In time, our eldership team will continue to grow. These are all new things post-lockdown, post-Lazarus that God wants us to emerge into. And also we're going to be supporting Junction Church in Eastleigh in a kind of partnership over the next few years to try and strengthen and serve and help them. So that's another new thing that we're going to be embarking on. You can see there is lots for us to accomplish. But before I finish, there are one or two things that have died. There are one or two things that need to stay in the tomb. Meaningless religion. Leave it in the tomb. Going through the motions. Leave it in the tomb. Doing stuff just out of duty. Leave it in the tomb. Consuming stuff. Leave it in the tomb. Performing. Leave it in the tomb. Attending meetings but not being on the mission. Leave it in the tomb. I want all of that stuff left in the tomb. If we're just putting on meetings every Sunday, but we're not touching life after life after life in the city, then we're just a club. And I might as well go and play rugby. Yeah? We get it? We're all on this mission together. Remember why Life Church is called Life Church. John chapter 10, verse 10. I have come that they might have life and have it to the full. So let's get back to life. Yeah? Let's live it. So there are my four things. Total worship, gospel witness, amazing wonders, and new works. And I want us to stand together, and I want to get the band up. Oh, it's so nice to be able to say that. Let's get the band up. Let's give them a big round of applause as they come up. And I want you to... If you are up for the mission of post-lockdown Life Church, I want you to keep your masks on, but I want you to stand and engage with this song in the most best and energetic way that you can to express your total worship for Jesus. Let's worship him, guys.